I'm Teresa Carraggio, and this is Third Paradigm. And this is the most hopeful episode that I have ever done on the world wars, because I have finally found the missing link. The penny has dropped. All these things that have not made sense to me, where it has just bothered me that there is something missing. I figured out what it is, and you can too. Let's do this. The question I asked in my Hitler journey, which I'll attach, is, was Hitler militarily incompetent? Or was he intentionally sabotaging the Germans on behalf of the Rothschilds? When I look at the decisions that he made, who invades Russia in the winter? Who says, okay, well, we took Dunkirk, but we'll give it back because that's what gentlemen do? Who says, hey, I'm an artist. Don't wake me before noon because I stay up till 3 a.m. and I'm not going to delegate to anyone else the ability to make decisions? Those seem so egotistical that it was really leading me to believe he had to be sabotaging. Then I look at speeches that I've heard translated and excerpts of his book, and I think, why would someone who's an agent for the Rothschilds be stating everything so clearly? And I look at mainly the economic policy that turned around the Weimar hyperinflation, that put them back on their feet after the crippling sanctions. And by crippling, I mean cut them off at the knees. And I wonder, how could someone be doing something so powerful if they were really that kind of agent? Then Tonica posted a review on a play called Berlin, which got me thinking about those stolen golden 20s. And we know statistically about the enormous wealth that went from the German people to the resident Ashkenazis. So I started wondering, when did that get turned around? When did Feder, because I knew that Gottfried Feder was the one who wrote the economic policy, when did his Feder bills, as they were called, get introduced? So, of course, I consulted my search engine. Feder bills, nothing, absolutely zero on that. And so then I looked up Gottfried Feder, and that was when lightning struck. Gottfried Feder was the threat that the Rothschild sent the son of their bastard son, Alois Schicklgruber, whose name still would have been Schicklgruber if it hadn't been changed to Hitler, into Germany in order to neuter. Let's look at Wikipedia and read between the lies. Feder was the one who had the German Workers' Party, which was DAP, was the initials, to which Hitler, they say, added National Socialist, NSDAP. Now, they want us to believe that that translates to an abbreviation of Nazi, when Nazi is much more correlated with Ashkenazi or Nazi, which was the Hebrew word for prince. It doesn't have anything to do with DAP or even NSDAP. Feder wrote the 25 points and defeated an attempt by Goebbels to amend it and to evict Feder from the meeting. And Gottfried Feder even has the iconic mustache that I am certain that Hitler, Schicklgruber, decided to emulate in order to confuse the people. It's been all rewritten to make it as if Schicklgruber was the leader and Feder was the follower, but that cannot possibly be true. Just look at this guy's face and tell me who you would be willing to believe. Feder is the architect of the brilliant economic reforms that evicted the Rothschilds from Germany and defeated their cartel. In 1931, Wikipedia tells us that Hitler/Schicklgruber steered the party away from Feder's views because it threatened the major industrialists, particularly Hjalmar Schacht. Schacht wrote in The Magic of Money that National Socialist agitation under the leadership of Gottfried Feder aimed to curtail private banking and the entire currency system. He further explained that the goal of Feder and his pupils was to destroy their entire banking and monetary economy, and concludes that he had to try to steer Schicklgruber away from these destruction conceptions. And he did. Schacht became Schicklgruber's president of the Reichsbank and Minister of Economics. Feder was made a mere secretary. He continued to write The Fight Against High Finance, Die Juden, and The New City. Now, here's something really interesting. His concept of the agricultural city is no more than 20,000 people divided into 9 autonomous units, each surrounded by agricultural land. Unlike other Garden City theorists, he believed that urban areas could be reformed by subdividing the existing built environment into self-sufficient neighborhoods. Feder's idea of the agricultural city matches exactly my idea of the hamlet of 2,000 people surrounded by 8 other autonomous hamlets making up a village of less than 20,000 people, and that being surrounded by a pie crust of agricultural land so that there is always fields that are available for animal husbandry and for agriculture. Wikipedia also writes, his concept of decentralized factories was successfully opposed by both generals and junkers. Generals objected because it interfered with rearmament, and junkers because it would prevent their exploiting their estates for the international market. Duh! So Feder was against rearmament and also against this expropriation of being able to extract that wealth for international markets. A site called Spartacus writes, when Adolf Hitler became chancellor in 1933, he appointed Feder as undersecretary at the Ministry of Economics. Conrad Hayden pointed out that Feder also had to serve under someone who completely opposed his economic policies. He writes, the post of undersecretary was a humiliating position. His new superior was almost a stranger to the party, but familiar to the stock exchange. He was Dr. Carl Schmidt, general director of the largest German insurance company. A more pronounced representative of rapacious capital would have been hard to find. Schmidt had spent his life lending money and collecting interest. He had literally bought his way into the National Socialist movement by giving the party generous aid in hard times. Feder continued to campaign for nationalization, profit sharing, the abolition of unearned incomes, and the thraldom of interest. Hitler refused to do this. As Alan Bullock, the author of Hitler, A Study in Tyranny, has pointed out, Hitler had never been a socialist. He was indifferent to economic questions. What he saw, however, was that radical economic experiments at such a time would throw the German economy into a state of confusion and would prejudice, if not destroy, the chances of cooperation with industry and business to end the depression and bring down the unemployment figures. So what he's looking at is how can people be going to work to make the rich richer? When Hjalmar Schacht took office as Minister of Economics in 1934, one of his first actions was to fire Feder from his undersecretary post. Feder then served as Reichskommissar for Settlement until December 1934. After the Night of the Long Knives, Feder resigned from the government, telling his friends that Hitler had betrayed the Third Reich. And then he ends up serving as a university lecturer and teaches settlement policy for the next 5 years until he dies in Bavaria at the age of 58. Something is not right here. There's a part of this story that we are not hearing. This is what's evident to me, and I'm not really interested in convincing anyone else. But to my satisfaction, Gottfried Feder created the economic miracle of full employment, of making sure that everyone had access to food because they had the means of production. They could access agricultural land. They could work and they could be paid in response for their work. If Feder's plan had been allowed to succeed, we would not be in the world we're in now. He would have repudiated the banking system, something that is just parasitic and extractive, and it would have provided a model without rearmament, without conquering anyone else, without enslaving any other people. He showed that it was possible. And for that, Schicklgruber had to be sent in to make sure that he had been trained as an actor so that he could deliver the lines that he had been given, the ones that had been written for him. And his skill as an orator was what got him into the party. That was what created this swell of a following. It was not the ideas. His ideas were always in favor of the Rothschilds. And that is what created the situation that we're in today. The rape of Schicklgruber's grandmother was not an unusual thing. Remember that one of the first laws passed was that Jewish households could not employ a German or other kindred woman who was under the age of 45. So it was so common that that law had to be passed. There are other articles that I've read recently that are talking about the Allied infiltrators who were good friends of Hitler and who accompanied him everywhere and supposedly were exerting their influence to get him to do things that were good for the Allies. I think all that's true, except for the part that Hitler was not a part of that. And when the role of Schicklgruber was done and he could stop playing Adolf Hitler because he had accomplished his purpose, he was trundled off under the pretense of committing suicide, something that his good friend said he went to as if it was just another day, because it was. I'll also link at thirdparadigm.substack.com a roundtable with Vanessa Beeley talking about why Ukraine and Israel are actually tied, and that the Nazis, who are part of Ukraine, and the Zionists in Israel are not really at odds. And that's exactly what I've been saying. The word should always be Zionazi or Ashkenazi, because those things have always been joined. What was the point of betraying Germany in World War I in order to get the Balfour Declaration if no one wanted to move there because they were too busy partying on their stolen money in Berlin? Instead, there had to be something that forced them to move so that Palestine would be populated with Israelis. That is the whole game that's being played here. And when we think that these are opposing sides, we're not getting it. For more, here's my Hitler journey, and this is the World War Truth playlist. Thank you for staying on this roller coaster ride with all of its strange twists and turns and what it means for what we can do now.